It's a sunny Saturday morning here in London, Ontario, the 11th largest city in Canada, the home to the University of Western Ontario, the prestigious Ivy School of Business, the London Knights of the OHL, and a town I've now called home for the past several weeks. London, Ontario, also known as the Forest City, is now home base after a major life decision to uproot following about 30 years or so in my hometown on the east coast of Canada. We're talking about the big move. We're talking packing 2 cars, 2 Cocker Spaniels, moving 1,000 miles to the west in a city I had never ever stepped foot in before. It's in that spirit I want you to think about whether or not you've been contemplating a big move on a similar scale for your business, your brand, your career, or your life. So it's the kind of big move that a year from now you'll wish you had started thinking about it today. Insights on the big move, our focus on today's edition of the Reinvention Chronicles. What if you've lost your way in your life, your business, your career to such an extent you forgot what the original dream was supposed to be in the first place? In other words, what if that original dream or idea that once ignited your imagination is now lying so deep it is in fact dormant, a mere fossil of an undeveloped, unexpressed idea, kind of like that aunt or uncle you met one time maybe 20 years ago? Well, if you know that person or you are that person, you would know full well that any thought or talk of a big move is the furthest thing away from their mind. So I know that person, I know that guy or gal, and he or she appears every week in different forms, in coffee shop conversations, in emails or phone calls or letters that I get. And let me share this with you in that spirit. Deep down, there is still this wish for a big move in their business, their life, or their career. And not too long ago, just before moving here to London, I got this note from a guy, a friend of mine, and he finds himself trapped in a decade-long career in the public sector. And he took time to share these thoughts, and I'll share them with you right now. I'm thinking of sending a few resumes out, but I'm still not sure of what I want to do. The biggest thing for me that's unclear is the first step. I find that I try and do as many things as I can outside of work to be happy, only to fall back into the 8 hours that I struggle with. So in this particular email, my friend is speaking to and referring to the first tactical steps before any big move, but it's been my experience that before any tactical steps are considered, something else has to happen altogether. And it's something I experienced myself back in October of 2009, something I went through. And it has to do with that point in time when you no longer recognize either the person or the professional you were supposed to be. Quite frankly, I was stuck. I was not being challenged in the way I needed to be. And I had somehow fooled myself into thinking we're talking a lot of pseudo-intellectual rationalization and justification, and I had somehow thought that I was living and achieving when really what I was doing was existing and maintaining. And I don't know about you, but I don't know any high school grad class anywhere in North America that ever had the valedictorian get up to the podium or the class president and talk fervently about aspiring someday 20, 30 years from now to exist and maintain. And yet that's exactly where I was. So I was very fortunate. I consider myself extremely lucky. I had a friend, October 2009, who introduced me to this particular book. It's The Alchemist, written by a Brazilian author, Paulo Coelho, and it has sold millions of copies all over the world. It was a word-of-mouth phenomena, and I'll never forget sitting there on a Saturday afternoon going cover to cover, reading The Alchemist, and something in particular grabbed me on page 18, and I was hooked for good, because on page 18 is when Coelho starts to explain the world's greatest lie. Now, this book is a novel. It's a It's a pure work of fiction. It's in the form of a fable, but the world's greatest lie reveals itself to us on page 18, and let me share it with you now.
Everyone believes the world's greatest lie, says the mysterious old man. The little boy asks, what is the world's greatest lie? And the old man replies, it's this, that at a certain point in our lives we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie.
You know, whether it's my friend who wrote me that email, or whether it's you or someone you know, or someone I'm going to run into a coffee shop somewhere down the road, the big lie is what needs to be confronted first before any tactical steps of a big move are even considered. So it's in that spirit, 2 questions to contemplate today on the Reinvention Chronicles. Number 1, what is the biggest lie in your world right now? The biggest lie, business, life, career, community, doesn't matter. What is the biggest lie in your world right now? And question number 2, how much have you allowed fate to control your circumstances or destiny? And fate could arrive in the form of other people or other circumstances or events, but how much is fate controlling the direction of where you're heading? And that's a very different mindset as opposed to a mindset where hands are firmly on the steering wheel of your business, life, or your career. Now, this is material that does take some time to pause and reflect on. You just don't snap your fingers and change things by going through the nearest, motivational drive-through window. But I was very fortunate. I had a friend, and maybe you will too, who basically called me out on my own fakery. And I was lucky. I discovered certain things through The Alchemist. Maybe for you it's going to be something else. Maybe it's another book, it's a live seminar, or maybe it is that heart-to-heart conversation with a real friend. A friend who can look through you, still enjoy the view, but also a friend who wants you to be achieving and living as opposed to just existing and maintaining. So what is that big move that you've been thinking about, dreaming about, wishing for? What is the big move that you know is going to radically change your business, your brand, your career, or any aspect of your life? What is that big move that is truly going to stretch you, force you to grow and evolve in a way that will truly astound the audience of one? It doesn't matter what other people think. It's you, because this is your life, your destiny that we're talking about. So as you consider all the material we've discovered today on the big move, I think it's appropriate we reflect back on some words that were written back in the 1800s. Man cannot discover new oceans unless he has the courage to lose sight of shore. And if we update it for the 21st century, I think because we have so many opportunities in front of us and so many resources at our disposal, it's kind of like having this high-powered speedboat, but we choose to leave it anchored at dockside. So yes, the big move, any big move, is going to require some motion to get towards that ocean. But in that spirit, I want to share this, that if you are considering at all how some of this material reflects on what you're going through and some of the ideas really resonate with you, please share them in the comments section, because some of the best ideas actually come from people just like you who are forming their own observations about this whole process of reinvention, sharing it, and more and more people are learning from each other. So we certainly hope you contribute. Never lose sight of the fact that even if you're still stumbling in the dark, even if you can't quite see the forest for the trees, as long as you're moving forward, you're going to find your own version of Forest City. So thanks so much for joining us for today's edition of the Reinvention Chronicles, and hopefully this material will inspire you to keep recreating and reimagining the business, the brand, the career, the life that you deserve.